for waiting for us. I would like to introduce you all to Mark Chamberlain. It's been a real honor for us to be able to number one, go through all of Mark's archives and sort of dive into BC space, and it's like this overwhelming project that he and Jerry Bursfold started a long time ago, and they've done so many projects. We hope to kind of overview some of those and that relate to our exhibit here at Grand Central. BC Space, as some of you may or may not know, is the oldest running California, or the longest running California gallery in open at this point, right? I mean,
well,
37 years worth.
Well,
right?
37 years. There's probably somebody out there who's longer.
Well,
we don't necessarily claim that, but we've been around for a long time.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, with that in mind, I think that BC Space, the exhibit here at Grand Central, sort of gives you a cursor to what the activities that they were doing or have been doing and are currently doing, and Mark's going to shed some light onto those practices and what has been going on. So without further ado, I want to have Mark get started.
Well, thanks, Dennis. When Mike McGee and Andrew Harris and Dennis approached me a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, about doing a retrospective show on BC Space, I was really delighted for a variety of reasons. One is we've been at it a long time, and I think we've made a bit of a difference in the world. But also something that it was very timely, because my partner Jerry had just been informed that he had colon cancer, and it turns out that one of the greatest joys that he had in his final time was taking this blast from the past that I'm going to share with you now about where we came from and how we got here. I need to just preface a little bit that I had no purpose or no intention of being an artist or a photographer or anything of that nature when I started, and the good fortune was the military grabbed me 2 days after I got my master's degree in operations research and sent me through 1 year, 10 months, 9 days, an hour, and 55 minutes of total transformation of my life. After which, when I got out, I couldn't find the threads, so I put everything of importance into a 1963 MG Midget and came out to California with the idea of using this newfound passion for photography to hopefully make a difference. One of the first things that happened was I located, after a brief stint in Los Angeles that was very foreign to my Iowa upbringing, and enjoyed it immensely, but had trouble collecting what money was owed me with people who were driving Jaguars one day and they were repossessed the next. I didn't understand that dynamic. It took me a while. But so I finally moved to Laguna Beach and started painting houses and trying to put together a business. And one of the things that happened was I was asked to curate a show, actually the first photography show, at the Winter Festival of Arts at the festival in Laguna Beach. And one of the people who showed up was Gary Birchfield. And we hit it off right away. He was kind of wild and crazy and found that I was perhaps similar. And so we hung some very interesting work out exposed to the weather in Laguna. Works like William Mortensen, if you've ever heard the name, used to be a photographer for the Stars in Los Angeles, and Paul Outerbridge, who became a superstar in the art world. And both of them were dead at the time, and their wives brought the work for us to hang on the wall on pegboard. This work was, Outerbridge's work was later sold under duress for many millions of dollars during the museum hijacking days. But at any rate, the first year, Jerry and I hit it off. Second year, I conned him into running the show, and I would help him. And then the third year, we started business together. So if you can go back to the one slide, the first one, Dennis, please. I proposed, and he foolishly accepted, that we would create a business whereby we could both collect the tools that we needed to pursue our own artistic endeavors, as well as find a way to support it through the work that we would do for others. So we created BC Custom Photo Lab, and we keep going to the, we can move on now. So the first thing we had to do was create a price list for what we were doing, and we wanted to offer custom film processing, all of the standard things we thought were necessary to be able to sustain ourselves. Print mounting, and the big thing that we did is starting in 1974, we were already doing serious black and white photography, but we had great interest in something like Cibachrome, which was the material that was necessary to put photography in galleries, because many galleries were skeptical about color photography first off, and they were highly skeptical of the most transient forms of it, and Cibachrome kind of laid that to rest. So we were the first ones to take a plunge and print the only material that was considered archival for galleries and museums. We immediately, though, were promoting the gallery concept, and the first thing we managed to do was to talk the local Laguna Art Museum into having a first annual All-California Jury Photographic exhibit. This was 1975. And the show kind of alerted them. We were already in tune with what was going on in photography, and we were trying to get the museum to be more appreciative of it. And this show turned out to be the largest invitational show that they'd had to date. So they had the first annual, second annual, third annual, and then it kind of fell off the boards. Go ahead. And so we, in the meantime, were struggling to put together a business that consisted of doing museum quality printing for other artists. And here's an artist, I won't mention his name, who really drove both of us quite nuts. Jerry, you can see kind of sitting over there, standing while he goes through each and every print to make certain that they were all perfect. It was agonizing on occasion, but it was also very enjoyable on others. And of course, we got to do all of our own printing along the way with the same machinery. I don't know what Jerry's doing there. But I'm telling him how he should have done it. And then the next one, we pull the old looking up in the air trick. We were also dedicated to the idea that work didn't need to be a four-letter word, that it could also be fun. But the work that we were developing did actually gain a great deal of acceptance when the Orange County Register, the editor at the newspaper, recognized that we were doing something a little bit special, so he approached us to do the printing for the Winter Olympics, or the Summer Olympics. That the Register had a very scant staff at the time. I think they had 20-some photographers, and they even had to pay their own way to sit in the bleachers sometimes, versus the LA Times, the New York Times, and Sports Illustrated that had a couple of hundred staff photographers running all over the place. But the editor recognized, he realized how the process was being conducted. They were judging from prints, not from slides. So he came to us, and we pulled out all the stops and did all of the best masking. Go ahead, Dennis. And other things that we could possibly do. They submitted these slides, matted, archivally, just as if we were going to present them for an exhibition in a museum-type environment. And they sang, and the Orange County Register won the Pulitzer Prize. So that kind of made us a big shot in the art world. But we were already doing gallery shows, but on a very, very small level, and mostly with friends, but some very stellar people. In fact, the first annual show, or the juried show at the Laguna Museum, had some work by Jerry McMillan. Also, Darrell Kern was involved with it. Robert Heineken was involved in it. Joanne Callis. Some of these are names that you might recognize from the show that's here. So we were bringing in quality people, but in the meantime, if you remember what the time frame was like, photography was actually starting to come into its own in the late 70s. And an Ansel Adams print of Moonrise over Hernandez hit a milestone. It sold for $20,000 at auction, and everybody thought, aha, at last the question has been decided that photography is art and it's valuable. So there were all kinds of galleries opening up in Orange County. So the Spiritus had a great new space. Up in LA, G. Ray Hawkins was migrating into a new place. Light Gallery opened up another facility from New York, had a branch out here, and everything was going great. And we were feeling kind of slim down in Laguna Beach, putting on small shows in relatively small spaces. So we sent out a letter to a great many artists, and we invited them to participate in an auction exhibit. And if you had a chance to look at some of the names back on that last page, I think you'll find there were some pretty stellar fellows in that group as well. And the thinly veiled threat was that, or the suggestion was, we wanted to do more, but we couldn't afford to do more unless we raised some money. And if the artists that we queried were interested in contributing works, we would auction them off, take the proceeds to, we're going way too fast. Notice I need to go back a couple of that. We need to, we'll auction the work off, and we'll then do more with the gallery. Well, an interesting thing happened. We actually built the walls, did the whole auction. It was a magnificent enterprise. Bill Collins, he knows the agony of some of the things that we went through over putting it together because he participated. And we actually raised the grand sum of $18,000. Jack Glenn was the auctioneer. Connie Glenn assisted him, if those names are bringing any memory back to people. And the trouble is, we had already spent the money before we spent it making this magnificent catalog. We had slideshows of the work. We had the whole thing. It was a class act. And the irony of the whole thing is that neither Jerry nor I had ever even been to an auction. So we simply did it the way that we thought it should be done, and we queried people who presumably knew how it was to be done, how the language should be, and how the thing should be done. We shot every piece that was in the show. We made prints, these small black and white prints with all of the nomenclature just as it is, and we had all of the mail-in forms and everything. And actually, now we can go to the next one. It was apparently deemed to be good enough that a year later, this is 1982, someone came to our door from the Pacific Grove Art Center and said how we wanted to invite you to come to our auction exhibit. And they presented this catalog, and it looked frightfully familiar. And if you'll go to the next one, Dennis, it actually was based exactly, they even Xeroxed all of the codicils that went along about how you did and everything else. So I guess we were on the right track. And they say the height of flattery is copycatting, so I guess we were.